Hi, I'm Bill McLoughlin, editor-in-chief of Furniture Today. Welcome to our Las Vegas virtual news desk. My guest today is Mike Rittler of TD Retail Card Services. Mike, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Pleasure, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, you guys always have such great insight on what's going on with the consumer. When you look at how 2020 is shaping up, what does the credit activity tell you about consumer interest in furniture purchases? I mean, we keep hearing about, explosive demand. I mean, you guys have a real handle on that. Can you give me some sense of what you're seeing?
Yeah. So, Bill, it's been great. Actually, coming out of COVID, as all the stores started coming back online and opening back up, the demand was phenomenal. I mean, we saw phenomenal demand through the end of 2020 and even into the early months of 2021. As you know, a lot of that can be driven by what the government's doing with stimulus and those types of things. And as we're sitting here and checks are getting ready to go back out, again, expect to see another surge of spending that'll come with that, a surge of consumption that'll come with that as well. So it's really interesting. In January, retail sales were up over 5% overall, and furniture segment saw that not only its share, but a higher share than that, because it's a category right now that people feel comfortable spending in. Right, some of the dollars that maybe they were spending before in travel and dining and entertainment are being redirected into furnishing their house, into creating the spaces they want.
Now, you mentioned that the stimulus tends to drive a lot of activity. So my guess is people are going out there with money in their pocket, but does the availability of credit allow them to extend that budget even farther? So if they take their stimulus check, it's kind of like 2x or 1.5x with that extra credit activity or credit availability.
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. And credit is always an enabler of doing bigger projects or finishing a room or whatever it may be. And it actually creates a nice, predictable way of making payments too, right? And so even when people get a stimulus check, like you said, they can see using that as a down payment and then using credit to do a larger project, or even being able to set that stimulus aside and use that to make the monthly payments on something where they may do a 12 or a 24-month equal payment plan. So credit plays a key role. Again, it's one of the pieces that can help fuel the purchase behavior of a consumer. Stimulus helps with the confidence. Then credit gives them the ability to see how they can do the full project, to really get the full living room, to get the full dining set, or even now it's outdoor living, extending your spaces to the outdoor living spaces and those types of things, home offices, home gyms, all of those. They're all very important. Credit really plays a key part in making that possible.
Great. We've seen, despite the pandemic, a lot of home buying activity, and particularly among millennials who are really starting to move into their prime householding years. Is that translating into increased furniture purchase activity and increased credit use activity among that younger generation?
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. Even before the pandemic, we did a retail experience index report probably 6 months before the pandemic. And what we had found in that was millennials were really starting to fuel consumption, fuel purchase behavior in all categories, but particularly in categories like furniture. And as you said, it's really a result of where they are in their life. It's they're moving into houses, moving from apartments to houses, upgrading to bigger houses and those types of things. And as you know, when you get into a new space, the last thing you want is an old look in a new space, right? So when you get into a new space, and you immediately start saying, well, how can I make this my own? How can I make it have the look and the feel that I want? And that's where really the availability of credit at the furniture retailers becomes really important, right? Because so people now feel comfortable, they know what their monthly payment will be for their house, and then they can go and they can say, okay, well, here's what I can afford to do and how I can do it and what credit can help me do to put in that new living room, to put in that new home office or whatever it may be. And millennials are an interesting segment of the population. As you said, it's a large segment of the population. They're hitting their prime years of earning and consumption and those types of things. they drive a different need as far as product goes too. And so whether it's the traditional revolving credit products that you offer, or even an installment product that might feel a little different for somebody in that age group. But what it really comes down to, what's really important, um, a seamless experience to be able to get credit, one that's easy, one that's online, one that's digital first, all very important. And so bringing to the market technologies that allow that digitization, like Snap to Apply is one of the new technologies that we're using right now, where you snap a QR code and it brings the app up on your phone and off you go. You do it right on your own device. Of course, much more comfort with millennials in applying that way than the old traditional way of sharing the information across the counter. So that becomes more and more important, giving the millennials the credit tools that they feel comfortable using.
It sounds like we can safely put to rest that myth about millennials living in their parents' basement and not having any ability or willingness to buy products. Sounds like we're moving on there.
Certainly. Yeah. And it's interesting too, because part of that is fueling the demand right now is, they think about, in some cases, maybe creating that space that's as comfortable as the parents' basement, but a little more high class, So, so it really changes the categories that they're interested in looking at. And, millennials have a unique taste, right? And the type of furniture they're interested in. And again, as you go out to the retail locations, you'll see, furniture that kind of meets their needs. Somewhat minimalist in some cases, right? And little, mid-century modern, those types of things. There's lots of new styles that are being driven by the market.
Yeah. So you and I had talked a bit toward the third, fourth quarter of 2020. And at that time, the availability of credit, just the criteria to get access to first tier, second tier, or third tier credit, they were kind of in flux, right? So there was a little bit of I guess what we might call a little bit of tightening of criteria. How would you describe the availability of credit in the market today, and how does it compare to what we were seeing at the end of last year? And then, complex question, right? Let's project that out a little bit. So what's your take on the outlook for the availability of credit for folks?
Yeah. I think our first conversation on this was probably 10 months ago, and we were doing a panel discussion. I had a couple of my colleagues that play in the other parts of the lending space, and they were both talking about just the quality of the applicants that they were seeing being, much better than what they'd seen before, because the prime lenders weren't writing as much business. And again, I think prudent adjustments at the beginning of the pandemic were warranted and what needed to happen, but everything you're looking at is, you're always looking into the future, as you said. And I think the government stimulus programs have really helped keep a lot of people afloat, and in some cases actually provided some liquidity to folks that they didn't have before. Savings rates are at an all-time high. I mean, among Americans, or at least over the last few years, the rate is, I think the statistic I saw is 20% up. On a year-over-year basis, the personal savings rates. And you think about that, and you think about the confidence that gives people to be able to spend, and really the ability to repay. It bodes well for lending in the future, right? And I would say one of the things to keep an eye on is unemployment. Unemployment always plays a key factor in that, and we're not back to the unemployment rates that we were before. And there's segments of the economy that still haven't recovered, right? That hopefully we'll see recovering a little bit faster now as states start opening up and people start feeling more comfortable. So hospitality and dining and those types of things, entertainment, hopefully those all start coming back. But again, looking at unemployment, looking at consumer liquidity, looking at the ability to repay, all of that bodes well for the credit market. You'll loosen standards, you'll lend deeper, you'll have prime credit available for more and more folks. And then products like we've talked about before, the waterfall products that then open up the spectrum to the secondary lenders and to the lease to own opportunities, again, fulfill that full spectrum. So I think the availability will be there at every level, and I think people will see that they might even have some better opportunities as prime lenders are going to underwrite a little bit deeper than they have in the last year.
That's a very optimistic outlook. That's good to hear. So would you say, because the question a lot of folks have is, right, how long is this consumer demand going to be there, and what kind of legs does it have? It sounds to me like you're pretty bullish on not only what that demand curve how it'll continue to stay up there, but also how credit can help extend that as we look ahead. Yeah. Would you say you're pretty optimistic about things heading into the rest of the year?
Very optimistic, Bill. I would say, certainly in the rest of 2021, we expect, furniture in particular, but all the categories where we're lending, we expect to see the demand to continue to be strong. And I think what ends up happening too is there are different segments that are recovering at different times, as we just talked about. And I think as folks get back on their feet and the economy keeps recovering, employment keeps coming back, that'll continue to drive demand. And some people have, as I said, they've put the money away, kind of a little bit of a rainy day fund, right? And when they feel a little more comfortable, then they've got that little rainy day fund to start that project. The availability of credit will help them see what more they can do, and that'll drive a whole new set of demand over and above what we've already seen. So I think there are a lot of legs on the recovery here. I think that we're going to see strong demand in the industry through 2021 into 2022, and beyond that, I guess we'll see what comes.
Well, that's really good news, and hopefully supply soon catches up with demand.
You're hitting on a key point there. Supply chain has been interesting, not only in furniture, but just across a lot of industries. Especially the demand for wood and wood products, and as we know in the furniture industry, the lead times to be able to get custom furniture and those types of things way longer than they've been in the past. And that extends to a lot of other industries as well. Home improvement is another one that's seeing a lot different change. My wife actually works in kitchen and bath, and she just got a notification that there's a 2-week extension on the lead time to order cabinets because of the manufacturing process and the supply chain. So that's going to be real. Then, it'll be interesting to see at some point, does the demand and the supply, do they flip a little bit? Do we, increase our production at such a rate that when demand comes back to normal, that maybe there's a extra or surplus of product that then becomes, another fuel for another surge as we sell some things, to sell off some inventory. So again, that's why I feel really optimistic through the rest of 21 and 22 that we'll continue to see the demand.
Well, I think we'll all hope that you are exactly right. Mike,
well, I am, Bill. That will be good. Maybe I'll have a new career as a prognosticator. So,
there you go. Mike, thanks for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Bill. Good to see you again.